Welcome to Streams of Income, hosted by best-selling author and entrepreneur Dr. David Powers, where we discuss streams of income, passive income, residual income, and even why there are dinosaurs and zombies in this intro. Fasten your seatbelts and get ready to dive in.
Hey guys, welcome to the Streams of Income podcast. You're in for several special new treats today. This one may seem a little bit weird, but I'll explain why. It's not because I'm a guest. He's pretty cool. But I am about a month out from the Unconference. I attended the inaugural Unconference in Sarasota, Florida about a month ago. It's hosted by Vincent Puglisi, who you've heard me mention almost every podcast, and that's because of Membership Freedom, the group that I'm in that he runs, which is amazing. But a month out from that conference, and I am still processing parts from that conference. Matter of fact, the guest today, Mr. Luger, is somebody I met at the conference. Pretty cool guy. I said, I got to get you on the podcast because your thing is just so interesting. And I'll let him tell you a little more about it. But I'm also processing. Yeah, don't you love the fact that I don't edit things? I think y'all like it when I mess up, because I've thought about hiring people to edit out the ums, the ahs, all that kind of thing, and to make this smoother, like a very professional, smooth, silver-tongued podcast. And my fans, you guys and ladies, have actually said, no, don't edit it. We like the rough cuts, David. I think y'all just like it when I mess up. But as I'm still there I go again, processing the Unconference, too many letters there in these syllables I'm trying to pronounce. I'm trying something new today for the very first time. I met an amazing lady. I'm not going to tell you who it is because I'm trying to get her on the podcast as well. But I met an amazing lady whose full-time job is sound quality. She actually hosts a podcast on sound quality. And you can probably figure out who it is just from me saying that. But she introduced me to the Quadcast, the HyperX Quadcast S microphone, and said, if you want to upgrade your podcasting, Dave, without putting too much money into it, I mean, got this under $200. She said, get one of these. Not only does it work amazing, but it changes colors, or I can pre-program certain colors, and I can align the colors this thing turns into with my branding if I want to. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do today, but I'm going to pause this recording in just a second and see if I can get it hooked up before I record the podcast in just a few minutes. And so also another thing I wanted to mention, my buddy Mark Foster, who you've heard on the podcast before, he was at Unconference, and look what he sent me. If you're on the video here, if you're not on the video, I'll tell you what it is. It's a coffee mug with a picture of a dumpster fire on it. It says, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Because Mark knows that I have an affinity for dumpster fires. Maybe I start too many dumpster fires. And we're not just talking metaphorically either. I have actually started literal dumpster fires before by accident. That's a different story that we'll tell another time, but so many amazing things from Unconference. If you want more info on Unconference, it's 100 attendees only, and I guarantee tickets are going to sell out 6, 7, 8 months possibly before the event even happens again. Unconference 2 double I. So if you want to know more about that, email me for sure. I'm not going to give you a link or anything on that, not even in the show notes. Email me, and I want to talk to you. I want to pre-interview you before I even turn you over to Vincent, because he'll interview you before he even offers to let you buy a ticket to Unconference. It's that exclusive. That's part of the thing that makes it so amazing. So stay tuned. I'm going to pause this recording, and I'm going to see if I can get this microphone hooked up. And in just a few minutes, we'll also have our special guest on here. All right. When we're back a little bit, you know what? I paused the recording and I thought to myself, maybe they'll want to see the unboxing of this thing. So let's go ahead and let me find a little pocket knife to open up these packages with. This little small pocket knife I keep in my drawer. Go, open that up. Get this thing open. Let's see what is in the Quadcast S. And man, if you're tuning in, I don't know if you're here for the podcast with Mr. Luger, with heavy metal money, that's his thing, or if you're here just to watch all the antics as I try to get this thing hooked up. So lots of instructions and stuff. Some of y'all might need these. Some of you guys might throw these away. I'm right in the middle. I'm one of those guys that reads the instructions, and because I'm a big nerd about organization and things like that. And so I actually read the instructions. Imagine that. All right, so let's see how this. Okay. Ooh, very nice. Packaging is pretty cool. Ooh, this is a beauty right here. Look at there. Oh, yeah, pretty amazing. If you're on the video, I keep saying looky here, but I'm just sitting here turning dials and stuff without even knowing what I'm doing. All right, and so we're gonna go on cord, and also this thing. I won't even say what it is because I don't want to mess that up. Yeah, we won't even elaborate on what that might be. And so now I'm gonna actually pause this thing for real and try to get it hooked up. You don't want to watch that part. All right, so here we are. I have the microphone all hooked up. This thing seems pretty cool. So it just it's a USB hookup. Obviously I'm going to mess with the cords later to get that figured out. It also has different functions. So it functions, let's see, stereo, omnidirectional, carioid, and bidirectional. So I can do pretty much anything with this that I would have tried to do with my old Yeti microphone, except much better. It also has this cool function. I can mute the microphone just by tapping it, and you'll see the light go off. That's how I know it's muted. Back on, there it is. And so just wanted to test that out. Also, I think I should preface and warn you before we get into the podcast itself that man, allergies. It is spring here in upstate South Carolina. Lots of pollen in the air. My allergies are already going haywire. And so if I sound a little bit off, that's why. I'm going to blame it all on that. It's allergies. So you tell me what you think about the microphone. Like I said, the color change just happens normal while I'm talking, while it's on. But I haven't played yet with the software, so I'm going to download the software later, and I can actually mess with it. And like I said, change it according to my brand or the pattern of the colors, things like that. So y'all be sure to let me know what you think. And the next time you see me, it'll be the actual podcast recording. And so looking forward to that in just a second. All right, guys, we are here with Chris Luger. And Chris, you may know this. Luger, pronounced like the old 1990s wrestler, Lex Luger.
That is correct. Yes, in high school there was a couple guys that used to always just call me Lex.
I knew you would appreciate the 1990s wrestling thing. As I mentioned when we first signed on here, I see behind you an X-Files poster.
Absolutely, yeah. I want to believe.
Yeah, so many things, man. So Chris is here, and we're going to ask a lot, but heavy metal money, or is it heavy metal finance?
Yeah, Heavy Metal Money. I have a blog called Heavy Metal Money. Been blogging since 2017, and then I have a podcast that's called the Extreme Personal Finance Show.
Extreme Personal Finance. So what I loved so much about this when I met you is I've always been appreciative of the Venn diagram where you kind of mix your passions, talents, and a way to make income from all those two things. And it seems like you found the perfect fit for all three of those, man.
I'm trying. Yeah.
So let's talk about metal first.
Sure.
So I asked you at the Unconference where we met, your favorite metal band or bands. Yeah.
It was, it's tough, man. I mean, that's like, choosing your favorite child. It's hard. I'd probably say it's a toss up between Iron Maiden and Anthrax.
Okay.
I'm definitely a thrash guy. So like the big four thrash, right? So you got your Megadeth, Slayer, Metallica, and Anthrax, big four. But yeah, it's all started with believe it or not, Twisted Sister. When I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I rode my bike to the mall and bought the cassette. It's actually a funny story. I was playing with Legos or something a 12-year-old kid would be doing, and I heard this music coming from the other room at my grandparents' house. And I go in the other room, and my uncle was watching MTV, right? And I was just like,
oh, back when they showed videos?
Yes, exactly. And I was like, I asked him questions because I was like, well, wait a minute, these are dudes, but what's going on here? But they were playing We're Not Going to Take It. And I was just like, this changed my life. And then from then it was, AC/DC. And, when I started talking to my uncle about it, he's about 4 or 5 years older than me. So it was Styx, Journey, Pink Floyd, all, Led Zeppelin, all of those. And then that led me to, again, the heavier stuff, the Metallicas and Megadeth. And now even, again, a lot of the modern stuff now too. I love Five Finger Death Punch. I know some metal, authentic metal elitists kind of bash on me for liking Five Finger Death Punch. They're like, it's just the same formula over and over again. I'm like, yeah, and I like the formula. Like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, and then also, newer bands like All That Remains. Again, some of it crossover from like some thrash heavy stuff to like the screamcore, the screamo
Yeah.
stuff. But dude, I like it, man. If it's good, I like it. I
Yeah.
mean, the thing is, there's like a million subgenres of metal, and I can be listening to Viking stuff one day, old school thrash the next, 80s glam the next.
Yeah. I love it, man, because I grew up on metal. Started out with the like the Poison and Dokken and all those
Yeah.
guys, and moved into in the '90s. I started going to raves all the time,
Okay.
and so Moby was like my favorite guy there. And so my favorite band now is anything Rob Zombie does, whether
Oh,
it's White
right on.
Zombie or Rob. So I guess he's kind of like a mix of coming from metal and then a lot of mixed stuff in there. But
Sure.
my son, my 13-year-old son, taught himself how to play guitar, and he's a big Pantera and Gojira and some of those guys, and he can play it awesome. And not a
That's
musical
awesome.
bone in my body other than listening to it, and he can do it all.
Good for him. That's awesome. Yeah, Metallica or Pantera just dropped another tour with Amon Amarth, and I tried to get artist presale tickets on Tuesday, and dude, I just can't spend like $250 on like a
Yeah.
ticket now. When I retired last year, um, I had like 17 concerts on the calendar. I
Oh
went to
wow.
I went to I went to a lot of shows. It's like that's kind of my hobby. That's my jam, and it just starts to add up, and I got to now kind of be a little more selective. I just saw Pantera when they opened for Metallica. I'm like, I would love to see them again on their headline tour, but I'll have to wait.
Yeah, yeah. My son's infatuated with Dimebag stuff. I mean,
Oh,
like
totally.
we went on vacation. He was wanting to go by the death scene and all that. And
I mean, Dimebag, he changed the face, man. He changed the face of music. He really did. It
yeah,
was one of those people that contributed so much to not only a genre, but just he touched and affected so many others that he influenced. You know, yeah. Anyway, yeah, totally. That's awesome.
yeah. It was pretty amazing stuff I didn't know too. My son's really getting into the lore of all of it because we watched an old video of the actual event, what happened to Dimebag,
Hmm.
and the guitar was broken. And then my son was explaining to me all the Eddie Van Halen stuff that Eddie like had him buried with one of Eddie's guitars.
That's right. Yeah,
It's an amazing story. I mean, people think it's just a bunch of long-haired rockers and all that, but there's a lot more to it. I mean,
there
and
is.
these guys may not look like some of the other folks out there, but amazing musicians.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So heavy metal and finance. So we've covered the metal part. What brought you into finance and combining the two?
Yeah, man. So it all started. So my journey to financial independence and focusing on personal finance, it all started around 2015, 2016 when I got divorced. So
Oh, that'll
basically,
hit your finances.
it absolutely did. Yeah. I mean, and my story was just, I mean, it was a little unique in that, for 19 years, I was with my wife at the time, and she handled all of the finances. So she paid every bill, she balanced the checkbooks, she, handled all the finances. I just went to work, and
Yeah.
it seemed to work, right? It was a good yin and yang. But then after, after she left in 2015, it was personal finance was all new to me, right? So
Yeah.
I had to Google like how to budget. Like it was a shock because I was logging into accounts for the very first time. I had no idea where money was going. I had no idea what we were
Yeah.
spending money on. I mean, there was a lot of leaks, what you could call, right? Money is like spending money on, $160 a month on Dish Network that I never watched. I mean,
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? And so then I was like, okay, I need to quickly figure out how I'm going to pay all the bills and do everything with one income. And so I started just really digging in and researching and learning and reading books and listening to podcasts and I quickly discovered, and again, a lot of people may know, I discovered Mr. Money Mustache, and
Oh, I
then
love that guy.
yeah, man, Pete's awesome. And that was the thing is I started like really understanding that if I was intentional with my money, then I could like, holy crap, people can retire in 10 years. Like, I didn't even think that was a thing. I thought like,
Yeah.
you just work until you die. Like,
Oh yeah.
that's
Like our parents did.
exactly. My parents, my grandparents, like they went to work, they worked until they died. And that was just what you did. But my mind just was opened up to what else is possible. And you can focus on so many other things. And so while I was doing that, I was just like, I wanted to participate in these conversations. I wanted to ask questions. And so I started blogging my financial journey
Yeah.
in 2017. And then I started just posting other financial content on just, fundamentals of basic finance. And I'm just trying to do my best to help others, whether or not where they are on their financial journey, but just know that there are other options and you can focus on other things in life. And so I was able to retire at 50, and that was last year. And when I say retire, I use that kind of loosely. I was able to leave corporate employment
Yeah.
at 50, but now I can focus on all those things that I've been wanting to do for years and years. I purchased a couple new guitars. I've been focusing a lot more on music. I've been focusing on a nonprofit that I started a few years back. I've been focusing on, again, building content. I've been focusing on just other side hustles that are just fun for me. And that's kind of where I was when I first launched the blog. I was just thinking, what are the things that really like get me excited? And I'm like, music, personal finance. Let's just mash them together, and that's
Yeah.
where Heavy Metal Money was born.
That's awesome. And I like you mentioned the retire early. Let's hit that
Yeah,
first because that's one thing I like about Mr. Money Mustache is his big thing on so many people could retire now if they actually boiled the expenses down, made a few changes, and the bills are paid, and then you can do whatever you want. And because I followed him long enough that I remember when he was talking about riding his bicycle into town
yeah.
and getting rid of the car, and then he bought that building and did the co-work space and some amazing stuff. But so that I mean, retiring early, it's got to be a cool thing, right? You enjoying it?
Um, there are parts. I will say that it wasn't. Um, so actually, I've now just hit 1 year retired, and it there's actually a little bit of anxiety for me. I think it's just because there are so many things that I want to do, and it's hard to focus. There's no structure, right? You're building your own
Yeah,
structure. So um, there are some times when I'm like, what do I focus on? I always think of like the Pareto principle, right? Like
yeah.
20% of your efforts are going to give you the most results, right? So I'm like, well, what are those things I should focus on to give me the most results? And sometimes I just don't know. Part of it, I'm just so ADHD that I work on this, and then all of a sudden I work on this, and
Yeah. So finance, I mean, the
yeah,
average person, I love to get into niches because the average
sure,
person would say, "Oh, that's a crowded market," and Dave Ramsey owns the market. But some of the best people I get financial info from are like Mr. Money Mustache and you, and I've got some other friends, the Bromleys, and it's like there are so many sub niches because Dave Ramsey is for the mass, mostly conservative Christian mass of people, and people need more than that sometimes, or they need an affinity. Like, obviously you're going to attract people that are more into pop culture, heavy metal, things like that. And I think people need that. It's not a crowded market. So, what do you feel about that?
absolutely. There's always room for one more, is kind of the way I think about it. And, and sometimes I always think too that, you know, we should always have so many different points of view, and gather as much information as you can and make your own educated decision on how how you're going to follow things. That's one of the things where, just working in tech and working my way through tech the last, 15 years, you know, I often tried to bring other people into discussions that maybe not specifically, in charge of that product or that technology, because you get different views, right? you get
Yeah.
you get different perspectives from different people on how they use the technology, what's important to them. And I think that's the same thing about finances, right? It's very personal, right? It's different for everybody. What's important to one person may not be important to another, like what you spend your money on. um and I think that it's like, for me, I mean, when I first started in 2016, one of the first people I found when I said how to budget was Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
And so that was, I will say, I do owe a lot to the beginning education with Dave Ramsey, because that's where I really started to understand pay off debt. Like I started to understand how detrimental debt can be. And so, yeah, man, I just jammed. I paid off all my debt, my credit cards, then I paid off my truck, then I paid off my house. And then once you have no debt, well, man, now I can truly for several years, 60 to 70% of my income, I was able to just invest that.
Yeah.
And then, so I just, again, I feel it's really important to get all different types of perspectives. My perspective, I try to be a little bit more fun in like my blog and the podcast, and just kind of be, yeah, I'm not so uptight. I'm just a little, and again, I try to incorporate little nuggets here and there of like heavy metal references, or like when you're saving up for whatever that finance goal is. And maybe my goal is that new pointy guitar. I don't know,
Yeah.
so I just try to, whatever's important to you, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so you mentioned the Luger Foundation. Tell
Yeah.
us about that.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate the opportunity. So, yeah, I started a nonprofit back in 2020 as kind of a part-time passion project for me. And this is basically a nonprofit. And what we do is we provide resources and financial assistance to families that are experiencing hardship due to premature birth or like
Okay.
complications during pregnancy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, a lot of times, a family, they'll have a baby, and maybe the baby's born early, spends weeks or months in the NICU. And
Oh,
even when you have insurance, well, that family can now have 20, 30, $60,000 in medical debt after the
yeah.
fact. And so what we try to do is try to have those families just focus on what matters, focus on recovery, being healthy, focus on your new family. And we're going to do our best to help with alleviating some of the medical expenses, but then also cost of living. One thing that
Yeah.
I've learned in the role of leading the Luger Foundation is that, for instance, here in Minneapolis, where I am, we have what's called a level 4 NICU, and
Mhm.
we support a lot of families in the surrounding states and greater Minnesota. So
Okay.
people will travel here to get care, and they're here for weeks, maybe months at a time, and they're missing work. They lost wages. They need a place to stay. They need parking passes for the hospital every day. They need meals, right? Because I mean, mom gets a meal, but
Yeah.
dad doesn't. And
Oh
so
yeah.
some of those simple things where, we're able to provide meals to the family. I mean, having the nurses be able to just hand them a Panera or Subway gift card,
Yeah.
it's a little gesture, but it means so much to the families that are being affected. So
Yeah.
that's something that we're doing. And that's one of the main focuses. Leaving work now, I can focus more on building a bigger impact with the foundation. And that's what I'm hoping to do as we move forward.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I can't even imagine what a daily rate in a NICU, like an average, would
Oh,
be. I mean, but we're probably talking thousands, right?
yeah. So here's an example. So again, it's my story, and I'm kind of paying it forward. So I was born early. I spent over 60 days in the NICU.
Oh wow.
And this was again back in 1973. And my
So
dad,
multiply the rate by 10 or 20.
what's that?
Multiply the numbers by
E-
10 or
e-
20.
Exactly. So my dad at the age of 20 went back to the hospital to set up a payment plan to pay the $250,000 in medical bills.
Wow.
And if you do the math now, it'd be like 1.2 million or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. If you think of that, and that's what in the industry, I mean, those what we refer to as $1 million babies, right? So the $1 million
Yeah.
baby, that's like a NICU baby that's there for, a month or two, and the medical bills are over $1 million. It's kind of crazy to think
Wow.
about that.
And I assume, I mean, as big as your hospital is, there's probably a Ronald McDonald House, that kind of thing. But
Yep.
still, even when you can stay there, those fill up quick. And, you know, I can't even imagine. I mean, because I'm thinking, I've got 5 kids. And if something like that happened to us, I mean, we'd be having to find childcare for the ones at home when we're traveling. And that'd just be a mess. Unless you're a local, I mean, it's hard enough. But yeah, I mean, that's a great idea.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, because that's the crazy part. And I just want to also share that there is generosity in the world. There's goodness in the world. I mean, when my dad went down to the hospital in 1973 to set up a payment plan, the hospital came back to my dad and said, "Your bill is paid for in full anonymously."
Wow.
We to this day, right? I mean, look, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, but it's like there's goodness in the world, and that's why I built this foundation to kind of pay it forward.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it's crazy, man. I think, and there's a lot of great organizations that do similar work. A lot of times, there's also organizations that will pay, past medical debt. A lot of it is old debt that has
Yeah.
been in collections. They're bought for pennies on the dollar. We have a program too where we pay, at the time of care because you need like cost of living expenses right then.
Yeah.
And then once you're home, in a few months, like let's try to alleviate some of the hardship at the time. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say too, that says a lot about your dad that he went in to do a payment plan because
He did.
there's a lot of people nowadays that would have just tried to stiff it or forget it or, bankrupt it, whatever. It's a different
Exactly.
generation that their first thought is these people help me. I'm going to pay them back.
Yeah, and he was doing that while working at the old Dutch potato chip factory.
Oh, but
So,
man, as a 20-year-old, that's a lot. I can't imagine the stress.
right? Can you imagine the weight lifted
Yeah.
that all of a sudden now you have, somebody took care of that. That's just amazing to me. And so, yeah, and there's, like I said, there's a lot of other organizations that we partnered with. There's another local organization called Spare Key, and they have a platform called Help Me Bounce. And they started where they help a lot of organizations or a lot of other families that are facing some sort of medical crisis. They could be anything from cancer treatment to a broken leg to whatever. But they also help people specifically that, they have, premature born twins and they're missing
Yeah.
work and they need help with the mortgage or whatever. And we're really lucky to partner with them. We awarded them a great grant last year
Yeah.
to help 5 families that they're supporting. So it's fun for me, and I'm looking forward to doing whatever I can do to make a bigger impact as we go forward.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, not to steal Dave Ramsey's thing, but the last of his baby steps is build wealth and give, and that's the step you're at, man.
Dude,
Because I mean, you're thinking way beyond just making money to pay the bills when you're helping people like that.
thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, and that's fun. I mean, even one of the first things that I would do. Again, there's a lot of causes that are important to me. And again, I encourage anyone just to give whatever cause is important to you. But even some of the simple things, like I'd be out to lunch with my kids, and as we get up to leave, I would just look around and find a family, and I would just tell the person at the register, "Hey, I'll grab their bill too." And then you know what? Then they get up to leave, and they say, "Oh, you know what? Your bill's paid for," and they have the best day because I spent $30 on their lunch. Like, big deal,
Yeah.
right? It's hardly anything, but it just made their day, and their day is so much happier. Like, I encourage people that once you get to that point where you can start sharing like that, it just changes the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, me and my kids just for fun, we watch some TikToks after lunch. We got to put it on a timer though, because it's addictive.
Yeah.
But we love the ones where those guys will go into Walmart and just walk up to the register and start swiping cards and stuff. I mean, it's just amazing to see how happy people are. And usually you'll find out you had no idea what that person was going through, but they were barely able to buy the groceries or they had put
Yeah,
stuff back because that's all they had. I mean, you never know what somebody's going through. I was
absolutely.
trying to tell my kids the other day, whenever we have a waitress, and you get awesome waitresses, they're happy,
Hmm.
cheerful, they love to serve. But if you ever get a bad waitress, that it's not always that they're a bad waitress. I mean, the chances are there's something going on that
Hmm.
they had to bring to work because they can't get away from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing to help people like that. So, what other streams of income are you into? Because I'm betting you saying you're ADHD and knowing some of the stuff you're into. What else do you do for fun or a little bit of money?
Yeah, yeah. So there's kind of a lot of things. I kind of have this problem with my brain. Whenever I think about something or I see something, I always look at an opportunity with like, how can I make that a business? How can I monetize that in some way? How could I solve a problem that would make it easier for somebody else? So there's a lot of side hustle stuff that I've tried. Some have
Yeah.
stuck, some haven't. One of the main things that I do now for like um, to live on is my real estate income. So I started investing in real estate back in, again, 2017 when I first started blogging about it. I bought my first rental property. I worked my way up to 10 residential rental properties. I
Wow.
recently just sold a couple. Um,
And we're talking like single family homes, that kind of
yep,
thing.
yep, they're all single family homes, and I just sold a couple because I'm using some funds to fund my very first new construction
Oh,
commercial project, which I'm officially like, it's kind of crazy to think about like I'm the developer. Like I never really thought about it that way, but I met with a couple architects and then my tenant. So I have a single tenant that is buying or is going to be leasing this space.
yeah.
So I met with their architect who's building out the inside of the building that I'm constructing. And it was interesting because we did the introductions and I introduced myself because he's like, "Oh, so who are you? Who are you with? Whatever." And I said, "Yeah, this is me. This is what I'm doing." And he goes, "Oh, so you're the developer." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh my gosh." I'm like, I got to put that on my LinkedIn profile. I'm now a real
yeah.
estate developer. But anyway, so yeah, so real estate is something that again I'm now so for several years any cash flow that I got from my real estate, I would just always pay my debt, right? Pay my
Yeah.
debt down or do improvements, maintenance, whatever. Now, ever since I retired last year, now I take a little bit of that to pay my bills. But then also, one thing I started doing in 2022, I posted a blog post at one point that just said, "Can you really make money doing these things?" And there were several different things that I tried. One of the things was um, selling on Amazon. And sure enough, I tried it. Kind of hit and miss in the beginning, but then eventually I found a particular product and I just started doing like what's called retail or online arbitrage, where you
Yeah.
find products for less, sell them for more on Amazon. And basically, after you pay Amazon's fees, you get what's left over. And I started by just going down the clearance aisles at Walmart and it started working, man. And I've been doing it ever since. And there are right now kind of peaks and valleys. But there are times when, I can be selling $1,000 worth of stuff a day.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable. And again, a lot of that stuff is just right out of my garage. I spend an hour a day or so on it. Um, depending on the margin, sometimes if the margin's big enough, right? If you can make enough, I'll palletize everything and then ship it to Amazon, and Amazon takes care of all the fulfillment.
Yeah.
But that sustains, a little bit of monthly income for me to go out to eat and maybe fund the next pointy guitar.
Yeah. I've found that most people too that do that on a small scale, almost enjoy the sourcing as much as anything. Like just
Oh yeah.
the treasure hunt of finding things on clearance and all that.
I think selling on Amazon for me, it's the fun of the game, right? It's not like I was talking to someone else about this that because I want to get into more wholesale, right? So I've
Yep.
established some relationships now with wholesale distributors, and I want to find some particular products where I can buy in bulk that sell more consistently. Um, and I was telling about the frustrations I'm having, and sometimes things don't work, or I buy something and then all of a sudden there's way too much competition, or Amazon themselves start selling it, which then
Yeah.
it's just a race to the bottom because you can't beat them on price.
Yeah.
And my friend said, "Well, but you don't need the money, right?" And I was like, that's fair, right? Like it's not like I have to make these sales this month on Amazon because I have to pay my electric bill. Like I'm not in that situation.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? For me, it's the fun of the game. I love seeing it's almost like a social experiment, man, because you find what's hot, what people buy, what I mean, it's amazing. Like there are times when, so for example, like last summer, I was selling box fans, like literally
Yeah.
box fans, and I was buying pallets of box fans and I was selling, I mean, 100 of them a day. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun when you find something just pops off like that.
Yeah. And one thing I want to mention about the real estate just before, because
Yeah.
I want the listeners to really understand what you said. You're doing a new build commercial spot and you already have the tenant lined up and working on the place.
Yeah,
That's a pretty cool thing.
we did it the other way, right? So we didn't build and then find a tenant. It was because of contacts that we know in the community. We knew that this particular organization was looking for, I don't know how much I can say publicly yet. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, I knew that this organization was looking to expand in a particular area. And so I had a friend that owned land in this particular area. And so we went through all of this planning. discussion, lease negotiation, all of that stuff ahead of time. So
Yeah.
now I have a signed 15-year lease, and
Wow.
we haven't broken ground yet. So it's kind of the best way. Where now I'm learning. Again, I've been learning a lot on the commercial side, um, and sometimes, well, some I learn. So again, there's like the differences between residential and commercial real estate,
Yeah.
and I've learned a lot of the benefits around commercial real estate, what's called a triple net lease, making sure that the tenant is available for any of those, um, you know, those common area maintenance costs,
Yeah. My
any of
dad's
those.
in a triple net lease with his construction business.
Yep, exactly. So it's a little different than when you have residential real estate, and then the AC breaks, and now
Yeah.
you're out a few grand because you got to install a new HVAC. But but I also learned a lot of things uh, that I had no idea. Like, do you know what? Okay, one of the first meetings we were having with we had some technical drawings that we were looking at, and we are looking at access, and the architect says this is where the sack and whack is going to go. Let me ask you. So, Dave, do you know what a sack and whack is?
No, I would have been turning away from him to look it up on my phone while he wasn't looking.
I actually paused the conversation. I asked the architect, I'm like, you need to explain that. And he goes, oh, that's water access control and sewer access control.
Oh, okay. So
Where
very
is that?
important.
Yeah, where is that going to be in the construction? So I'm learning a lot. Um, but yeah, so I think that is one thing where I was fortunate enough to move forward after we had again, there was a lot of, I mean, going to city council meetings, city planning commission meetings. I mean, this went on for like a year and a half before we actually got a signed lease in place, and we're ready to go forward. We hit a couple snags actually just last week. There's some discussion around whether or not, and the size of we're not on city water or sewer, so we have our own well and septic.
Yeah.
So the septic design and how big a well we need, based on how much water is going to be used and that type of thing. And so we're going through a new septic design, but yeah, that's
That's
kind of where we're.
crazy because I mean I'm very rural where I'm at, so we're on septic and everything, but I can imagine the size of a septic for a big commercial space there.
So let me tell you this. So one of the concerns is, based on the square footage, and we're at about 12,000 square feet for this particular build, and the occupancy. So based on right now, we're seeing conflicting information based on building codes. So we're trying to get this sorted out, because if it's under
Building,
a
it's
certain,
all open to interpretation.
oh man, you're telling me. So based on like under a certain square footage, we don't need a sprinkler system, right? We can put in the proper fire barriers and fire doors, like 90-minute burn times and all the things to help protect people and property. But then there's also like a supplemental code that says if it's used for office and occupies 30 people or more, it still needs a sprinkler system.
Oh,
So we're trying to figure all this out. But in talking with a couple of, again, our construction project manager and the architect last Friday, well, dude, so adding a sprinkler system with on septic and well, our well goes from 4-inch well to an 8-inch well, doubles the cost.
yeah.
We need two, I don't know, I forgot how many 1,000-gallon holding tanks we need underneath for the sprinkler system, a separate sprinkler system pump to pump the water
Yeah.
up through all the sprinkler systems. So this adds significant cost to the project. So that's why I say we hit a little snag and we're trying to figure
Yeah.
that out.
See, my dream in this little town where I'm at, when I get into real estate, my dream is to start buying all these old buildings in my little one stoplight town and retrofitting them and building them back up again. But I've been told by some people in town that the cost of retrofitting sprinklers and stuff for those
Mm,
old buildings will cost you as much as the property sometimes.
yeah. Yeah, it's true. I heard that there are people that, if they are in a residential, like assisted living type area, and that's one of the things they do when they retrofit those properties is they bring
Yeah.
in commercial kitchens, but then also they need to bring in sprinklers, and that is
Oh,
cost. Yeah.
yeah. That's crazy. So, I mean, this whole thing, I know there's probably a lot of headaches and a lot of bureaucracy to deal with, but are you enjoying this so far, the commercial build?
Oh, I think it's great. It's super fun. And I want to let people know too, I'm not in it alone. Like, this is something where I have partnered on the deal. I had an old business coach that I used that helped me streamline all my residential properties.
Yeah.
And you know, he basically approached me with this opportunity, and I tried to do this on my own, like 100%. I would be the owner of this. And I talked with the lender several times. I looked at the equity that I had in my existing portfolio, how much cash I actually had, what this overall project would cost. And I just needed such a large cash position going into the deal.
Yeah.
I reached out to my old business coach and I said, "Hey, you know that deal you brought me? Do you want to partner on that deal, like 50-50?" And he's like, "Sure."
Yeah. Now, is this
And
the guy I met at Unconference?
it is. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
You have met him. Yep. You met
Yeah.
Steve. And so the beauty of this is Steve has done this multiple times before.
Okay.
So
So he's bringing all that experience into it.
exactly. So I'm kind of under his wing, kind of he's really been mentoring me along the process, and I look forward to what I learn now and then this project. Again, we're still hopefully going to be breaking ground this spring,
Yeah.
and then we probably have about, well, they're saying like a 6 to 8 month build time. The cool thing is um the tenant can do the internal build kind of at the same time once we get the walls up, and we can really speed the process up.
Yeah.
And then I look at the next project a couple of years from here. So keep going.
That's pretty cool. Well, I'll tell you what, as we start winding up, I
Yeah.
always like to ask everybody if you could recommend three resources, books,
Oh,
people to follow, websites, anything like that. Three resources that you feel somebody should follow or read, whatever, for success. What would it be?
oh, that's awesome. I think one of the first resources is the book Atomic Habits. I know a lot of people kind of talk
Oh,
about it,
yeah.
but James Clear, Atomic Habits, just an absolutely brilliant read. I listen to that audiobook, multiple times, right? Like a couple times a year, just I have it on because I still will get something or a reminder. Um, Another one that kind of changed the way I think about things was um, a book by Brian Tracy called No Excuses,
No
right?
excuses. Okay.
The power of self-discipline. And that one really kind of changed the way I thought about just holding yourself accountable. Very, very similar to John Miller's what was it?
The
CBC,
QBQ?
QBQ. What
Yeah.
CBC? What was I talking about? QBQ.
CBC.
Um,
Complete blood
um,
count.
yeah. So, and another thing, and I will tell you, like, I think the book was called, this one I read so long ago. I was still working. I was working second shift, in the printing industry. My kids were just born, and I read this book. I think it was called The Millionaire Mind. And I think
Millionaire
his name
mind.
was Harv Eker. And
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
yeah, and the interesting thing, like it just changed the way I thought about a lot of things. One was changing the way I thought about money and about earning money because he
Yeah.
did the comparison about how rich people think, how poor people think, right? And there were several examples. And then that book was one that really changed the way up until then, right? I was probably 35 years old. Up until then, I had always thought about exchanging time for money. Oh, well, how much money are you making? Oh, I'm making
Yeah.
20 bucks an hour, 30 bucks an hour, whatever. But this book changed to like, no, man, you gotta get paid for results. Like it shouldn't be like when you stop exchanging time for money, that's when it just changed the game. And that's
Yeah.
when I looked at the next job and the next job. Well, there was a variable component to my salary. There was a commission structure. There was a way I could bust ass to make more. And that's where I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, mind blown.
Oh yeah. Hey, and I'll tell you what too, since you're the expert, if somebody is not a metal fan, what would
Yeah,
you recommend? Like the album or something like, would you throw them off the deep end or what would you recommend for that? Like just to test the waters.
man, that is a great question. I mean, I always think kind of those to kind of cut your teeth on, it is those classics like AC/DC, right? Led Zeppelin, Van Halen for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I remember I tried to get a non-metal friend because it's just such a masterpiece, and I loaned him the CD of Rust in Peace by Megadeth.
Yeah.
And I remember a week later he came to work and he handed me the CD and he's like, "Bro, I just can't do it." And to me, I'm just like, man, it's just they're so good. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think if you can cut your teeth on those, it can definitely help for sure.
Okay. Yeah, and AC/DC, I mean, that's one, once they start listening, they'll realize like, oh, I've heard that song in a movie or what, and
Hmm.
there's a little bit of familiarity there with that.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
Yep.
And then I think there's definitely some crossover stuff. I mean, some of the newer bands like Five Finger, they
Yep.
have radio friendly tracks, but then there's other tracks that are definitely not radio friendly and they're heavy as can I swear on
Yeah.
this podcast?
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah. No, you're fine.
yeah, they're like heavy as shit and they just like crush, so
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much Rob Zombie stuff that's radio friendly, or at least you can tell when they've changed it to a radio edit version. Kind of like listening to Ice
right.
Cube on the radio, you know?
Yep. That's awesome.
Yep. All right, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate you being here. Are you going to be at Unconference next year?
It's on my calendar. I haven't talked to Vince yet, but it's looking like it. I will tell
Okay.
you, uh, when I was down in Florida this past time, I actually took a couple days and um, I was looking at places down there. I fell in love with it,
Ah,
man.
yeah.
I really did. I was like, wow, you know what? When it's 20 below zero and 10 inches of snow up here, so I don't know. I think in a few years I might have a winter place, maybe in
Yeah.
Florida. We'll see.
Hey, man, I grew up on the in South Carolina on the coast, but one of my favorite places is Central Florida, where all the springs and everything are.
Oh, okay.
And because I mean, even when it's cold, the water stays 70 year round, and it's pretty
Wow.
cool. Yeah,
That's
and you
awesome.
can play with the gators and stuff. It's fun.
I don't know. You play with the Gators.
They, you know how you test the water in Florida to see if there's gators in it? Is you walk up to the water and you dip your finger in, and if the water's wet, there's gators out there.
Dude, yeah, that's good. I remember one of the first times I traveled to a conference. I think it was Florida. I don't know. But I remember I was like exploring the property and I was out on the deck and I remember I saw the first time a sign that says don't feed the alligators. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like,
Yep. Don't let the small dogs near the edge of the water.
right?
Yep.
Oh, that's
Well, thanks
awesome.
for being with us, man. And I'll put in the show notes how to get in touch with you, and
Yeah, man.
I'll throw a link in there to the foundation also. And that way,
Thank
I
you.
mean, you never know when somebody might hear this and have some money, or maybe this got some leftover giving to do for the year or whatever.
Yeah, well, and also, there's also there's an intake form on the website too. I mean, if you or someone else needs help, fill out the form and we'll do what we can.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad to find that out about you too, because I knew the metal and the money, but I didn't know about all this other stuff. So
Thank you, man.
it's why I
It's a
love doing this.
pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Rock on.
Yeah. Take care, man.